The late evening light from Queens spilled through the grimy diner window as Lila Hart stacked coffee cups. Her apron smelled of old grease and caramel syrup. She was just finishing a double shift when her phone buzzed an unknown number, an elegant gold logo flashing across the screen. The Plaza Hotel, 5th Avenue. Her chest tightened. It couldn't be. She opened the message. "Hi, Lila. It's Cole. Long time, huh? I'm hosting a charity gala next Friday. Would mean a lot if you came. No hard feelings. Cole Mercer." Her ex-husband. The man who once promised forever, then vanished when her mother got sick and hospital bills piled high. The same man who'd called her a burden before walking out with his new flame. A PR girl with a perfect Instagram smile named Sabrina Vale. Lila reread the text, her hands trembling. A part of her wanted to delete it. Another part, the wounded part, wanted to stand tall for once, to prove she wasn't the fragile girl he'd left behind. She looked down at her reflection in the diner's metal counter. Tired eyes, faint freckles, a woman trying too hard not to break. She whispered, "Maybe I should go." Her co-worker Rosa shook her head. "Honey, those rich types don't change. You'll walk in, and they'll make you feel small again." But Lila wasn't sure. Maybe Cole wanted closure. Maybe this was a chance to end the ache that had haunted her for 2 years. That night, she sat on her narrow bed, scrolling through photos from their marriage, Cole smiling beside her in Central Park, hand on her waist, whispering promises. She deleted every one. Then she opened her closet. Just one black dress, worn to a funeral. She ironed it carefully, stitching the torn hem herself. The reflection in the cracked mirror whispered a prayer. "Don't cry this time." Friday arrived. The city gleamed. She took the subway to Manhattan, clutching a small thrifted clutch and an old iPhone with a half-broken screen. When the elevator doors at the plaza opened, golden chandeliers bathed the hall in cruel light. At the center of the ballroom there he was. Cole, in a sharp tuxedo, holding a glass of champagne, arm around Sabrina, who glittered in a silver Dior gown. Cameras flashed. Cole spotted her. A smile, thin and practiced. "Lila, you made it." His voice carried, drawing eyes toward her second-hand dress. Whispers followed like invisible knives. And then, the final cut. Cole raised his glass and said loudly, "Everyone, this is my ex-wife. She taught me what it means to start from the bottom." Laughter rippled. Lila froze, humiliation burning through her chest. She realized this wasn't closure. It was a setup. And yet, deep inside, something in her refused to bow. She smiled. The kind of smile that would soon change everything. Lila stood frozen beneath the golden chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, the laughter echoing like broken glass. The walls shimmered with money mirrors, champagne flutes, the glitter of Cartier bracelets brushing against Dior silk. The air smelled like power and expensive perfume. And there she was, a woman in a thrifted black dress, holding her clutch like a lifeline. Cole moved closer, his hand still resting on Sabrina's waist. "You look the same," he said, voice smooth but sharp. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Lila forced a small smile. "You invited me, remember?" He chuckled. "Yeah, guess I did. I thought maybe you'd want to see what success looks like when you stop holding a man back." Sabrina leaned in, her red lips curling. "Oh, Cole, don't be cruel," she purred, loud enough for others to hear. "She's brave for showing up." "Poor thing." People nearby smiled politely, the kind of smile that hides judgment. A woman in pearls whispered, "Is that the waitress he married?" Another man said, "Guess she came to beg him back." Lila's stomach turned, but she stayed still. She'd promised herself not to cry. Not again. Waiters passed trays of caviar and champagne. She reached for a glass, but her hand trembled. The stem slipped, the glass shattered at her feet. Gasps. Cole shook his head with mock pity. "Still clumsy," he murmured. "Some things never change." Fin 5. She knelt quickly, gathering the shards, her fingers nicked by crystal. Sabrina's laughter tinkled above her like bells at a funeral. Lila whispered, "I'm sorry," though she didn't know why. "Leave it," said a warm voice. "You'll cut yourself." Lila looked up. An older woman with silver hair and kind eyes crouched beside her, Eleanor Nell Whitfield, a name she didn't yet know but soon would. The woman gently took the broken pieces from Lila's hands and said softly, "Sometimes it's better to let broken things go." Before Lila could respond, Nell slipped a small business card into her palm. "Call me," she whispered. "It's about your mother." Then she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Lila stunned. Cole clinked his glass again. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called, "let's toast to growth and the people who helped us realize what we deserve." Eyes turned toward Lila, then back to Sabrina, who kissed Cole's cheek like a trophy. Laughter rippled again. Lila swallowed hard, heat rising to her face. Her vision blurred from the lights, but she forced herself to breathe. 1, 2, 3. She found the exit, heels clicking too fast across marble floors. Outside, Manhattan's night air hit her like ice. She leaned against a column, shaking. On the street, taxis hissed past puddles. A man sold roses on the corner, shouting prices to no one. Lila stared at her reflection in the glass doors of the plaza. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. Her phone buzzed a new message. "Unknown number. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. The River Calf, Brooklyn. It's about your mother's last letter. N.W." Lila's heart thudded. Her mother? Her mother had died 2 years ago. What letter? She looked back through the glass. Inside, Cole and Sabrina were still smiling for cameras, their perfect world sealed behind gold doors. But something shifted inside Lila that night. A spark, a whisper. The realization that she didn't belong there, not because she was less, but because she was more than they could ever understand. She squared her shoulders, turned away from the lights of Fifth Avenue, and walked toward the subway. Her hand still held the card with Nell's name. And as she disappeared into the city, she didn't know yet her life had just begun to turn. The next morning, Lila woke up with the ache of last night still clinging to her bones. Her phone buzzed nonstop notifications, messages, and one text from Rosa. "Lila, girl, you're all over social media." She didn't understand until she opened Instagram. Plaza Gala, ex-wife drama, from waitress to wow. Someone had filmed her spilling the champagne. The caption read, "Cole Mercer's crashes his event tragic, really." The comments were worse. "Should have stayed in her lane. Classic gold digger comeback. She looks homeless." Lila's throat burned. She wanted to vanish. By noon, her manager at the diner called. "Lila, honey, customers saw the video. It's bad for business. Maybe take a few weeks off." Which meant she was fired. She hung up quietly. Her world, already fragile, crumbled again. That night, she sat on her narrow bed, the noise of the city leaking through cracked windows. Bills scattered across the floor. The eviction notice she'd been ignoring peeked from under a magazine. She whispered, "What else can they take from me?" The answer came faster than she expected. A knock, 2 uniformed officers. "Miss Hart? You're being served." Cole's lawyer had filed a defamation complaint, accusing her of trying to harm his public image by attending his event uninvited. Her hands shook as she signed. After they left, she sank to the floor, tears spilling. But grief soon hardened into fury. She opened the drawer where Nell's card lay. The River Calf. Noon. The next day, Brooklyn Bridge shimmered above the cafe like a steel crown. Inside, soft jazz and the smell of roasted coffee filled the air. Lila walked in nervously. Nell Whitfield sat at a corner table, elegant in a gray coat, eyes calm but sharp. "Sit, dear," she said. "You look like your mother did when she was tired of pretending everything was fine." Lila froze. "You knew my mother. I worked with her at Whitfield Holdings. She was bright, gentle, but she hid something important from you." Nell slid a thick envelope across the table. "Before she died, she left a letter. She asked me to find you when you were ready." Lila stared at the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was her mother's handwriting, slanted, familiar, breaking her heart open. "My Lila, if you're reading this, it means you've been hurt enough to finally seek the truth. You are not alone. You are the rightful heir to Whitfield Holdings. I kept it secret to protect you. People would have used you, just as some already have. But when the time comes, Nell will guide you. Lila's breath caught. Heiress? Holdings? None of it made sense. Nell leaned closer. Your mother married the founder's son before you were born. He passed before he could acknowledge you legally, but the trust remains in your name. You're worth more than you know, Lila. But money is only power when you believe you deserve it. Lila whispered. I don't want money. I want peace. Nell smiled gently. Then use the money to buy peace for yourself, for others. But first, stop letting people like Cole define you. Outside, the East River sparkled beneath the noon sunday. Lila looked out the window, realizing how small Cole suddenly felt compared to this truth. Her phone buzzed again. Another video call, laughing with Sabrina, mocking her. She came to the gala to ask for help, he said on camera. I almost felt sorry for her. Lila watched, silent. Her pain sharpened into clarity. If they wanted a poor ex-wife to shame, they'd soon face a woman they'd never recognize again. The train rattled over the East River as Lila clutched the envelope against her chest. The city blurred past her window-gray towers, streaks of light, strangers who didn't care. The letter burned in her mind. You are the rightful heir to Whitfield Holdings. By the time she reached her tiny apartment in Queens, her legs felt weak. She placed the envelope on her table beside a flickering lamp, staring at her mother's handwriting again. The words didn't feel real. Heir? Her? She had $37 in her account and a fridge that hummed louder than it cooled. The next morning, a knock startled her awake. Nell Whitfield stood at her door, holding 2 coffees and a gentle smile. You didn't call, she said. So I came to you. Lila blinked, embarrassed by the clutter in her apartment. I didn't think you were serious. I mean, why me? Nell stepped inside without judgment, setting down the cups. Because the world already decided who you're not. It's time you decide who you are. She opened her leather portfolio and pulled out a slim MacBook Pro, turning it toward Lila. On the screen glowed a logo. Whitfield Holdings, Private Trust Division. Beside it, a digital ledger. Your trust account, Nell said softly. Your mother's shares were never sold. They matured over 20 years. It's substantial. Lila frowned. Substantial how? Nell hesitated, then clicked a number. 1,400万美元. The room went still. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Lila's throat went dry. That can't be real. It's as real as the people who will try to take it from you, Nell replied. Cole Mercer has already been sniffing around. His company has a pending deal with Whitfield. He doesn't know you're the heir, but he will soon. Lila's pulse thundered. If I claim it, I'll have to face him again. Yes, Nell said, but this time, not as the woman he humiliated. Lila stared at the laptop. Her reflection shimmered faintly over the screen, tired, uncertain, but no longer broken. What if I'm not ready? Nell leaned forward. Your mother believed you'd be ready when you finally stopped apologizing for surviving. Silence hung between them. Then Nell slid another envelope across the table. Inside is a condition. To activate the trust, you must write a purpose statement, what you intend to do with the inheritance. No purpose, no release. Lila nodded slowly. She knew I'd need a reason. Nell smiled. She knew your heart. That's why she asked me to find you, not the lawyers. Later that night, Lila sat by the window, the city glittering far away. She wrote on a scrap of paper, to build something that matters, to honor her. Then she stopped, staring out at the skyline. Her phone buzzed again. Rosa's voice message. Girl, you're trending again. Cole posted a video calling you a liar. Says you're pretending to be rich now. Lila listened quietly. The hurt was sharp but fleeting this time. She closed the message, set her phone aside, and whispered, let him talk. For the first time in years, she didn't feel powerless. She looked down at the ledger again. Every number was proof that she wasn't small. She didn't know it yet, but the same fortune that once destroyed her family was about to rebuild her life and ruin his. The rain fell in thin gray sheets the next morning, washing the grime off the Queen's sidewalk. Lila sat by her small kitchen table, watching droplets race each other down the window. Nell's words echoed in her head. Money is only power when you believe you deserve it. On the table lay the envelope containing the activation papers for her trust. A pen rested beside it, untouched. She'd spent the night pacing the floor, rereading her mother's letter, trying to imagine what a woman like her, someone who'd cleaned tables and counted tips, was supposed to do with millions. She dialed Nell's number, voice shaky. "I can't sign it yet." "I didn't expect you to," Nell said gently. "Take your time. But don't mistake hesitation for humility. Your mother didn't raise you to hide." Lila sighed. I don't want to become like them. People who think money gives them permission to hurt others." "Then don't," Nell replied. "Use it differently. The world already has enough coals." ID. After hanging up, Lila took out a yellow notepad, the same one she used to track her rent and grocery bills. At the top, she wrote, "If I ever have enough, what will I do with it?" Her pen hesitated, then began to move. 1. Pay off debts for the nurses at Mom's old hospital. 2. Open a scholarship fund for women starting over. 3. Build something small but real, something that can't be taken away. When she finished, tears blurred the ink. Later that afternoon, her friend Naomi Brooks dropped by a sharp-tongued paralegal who'd stood by Lila through everything. Naomi took one look at the papers and whistled. "Girl, this is legit. You're sitting on a fortune." Lila smiled faintly. "Feels heavy, not lucky." Naomi nodded. "That's because you've been broke long enough to know what money can't fix." She flipped through the documents. "You'll need legal cover. Cole's the kind of man who sues just to stay relevant." "Wine. I already got served once," Lila murmured. Naomi smirked. "Then it's time we hit back quietly. Let's make sure every move you make is bulletproof." They spent hours going through each clause, Naomi explaining, Lila learning. It was like discovering a new language, the language of power, contracts, and leverage. When Naomi left, she hugged her. "Keep your head up. Dignity first. Money second." That night, Lila signed the purpose statement. Her handwriting trembled, but her heart didn't. To create opportunity for women who were told they'd never rise again. She sealed the envelope, knowing the world might finally shift. But fate wasn't done testing her. The next morning, she walked into the diner to collect her last paycheck. Her boss avoided eye contact. "Sorry, Lila," he said. "Cole's lawyer called. Said if I keep you on payroll, they'll file a defamation claim against us too." Lila exhaled slowly. "So I'm fired again?" He nodded, ashamed. She stepped outside, the rain having turned to sunlight. Her reflection in the window looked tired, but her eyes held something new: resolve. She pulled out her phone and typed a message to Nell. "I'm ready. Let's file it." For the first time in years, Lila wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. She didn't need Cole's world anymore. She was about to build her own. By the time autumn settled over Manhattan, Lila's name had become a whisper again. The online chaos faded, and Cole's shiny world spun on, until a small, silent storm began forming behind the scenes. Naomi worked late in her downtown office, surrounded by folders stamped Mercer Group, LLC. Lila sat across from her, sipping cheap coffee from a paper cup. The walls hummed with the low buzz of fluorescent light. Naomi slid a document across the table. "Here it is. The records of every side deal Cole made while you were married. He hid money in shell accounts under Sabrina's name." Lila frowned. "He used her to cover his tracks." "Of course," Naomi said, smirking. "Men like Cole always need someone else to hold the blame when the ship sinks." The document listed dozens of suspicious transfers and payments, luxury expenses, even a Cartier bracelet Sabrina had flashed at the gala. Each transaction was a breadcrumb. Lila's hands trembled as she traced the numbers. "So, he really did steal from his company?" "More like repurposed investor funds for personal fun," Naomi replied. "If we file this properly, he's finished. But you have to be careful. He's still dangerous." Lila stared out the window. The skyline glowed like 1,000 promises, cold and unreachable. "I'm not scared anymore." That night, she returned to her apartment and found a Tiffany blue envelope slipped under her door, her name written in cursive. She opened it carefully. Inside was a velvet ring box, her mother's old wedding ring, remounted with tiny new diamonds. A note beneath it read, "For strength. From Nell." Tears blurred her vision. She slid the ring on her finger, whispering, "Okay, Mom." I hear you. Days turned into weeks. Lila met Nell often at a quiet cafe near Central Park, where they planned every step like a chess game. The first move: file a quiet request to the Whitfield trustees, naming Lila as the legal heir. The second: gather every trace of Cole's fraudulent behavior. Meanwhile, Cole was thriving, or thought he was. Sabrina managed his PR, feeding gossip sites about his new real estate empire. Photos of them at the Beverly Hills rooftop bar flooded social media. In every image, Sabrina clung to his arm like a trophy. Then came the first crack. An anonymous email landed in Cole's inbox. "You should have treated her better." Attached was a blurred photo of him and Sabrina in a private suite, time-stamped during a client meeting he'd billed as business. Cole panicked. "Someone's leaking private photos," he shouted at Sabrina. "Who would care?" she scoffed, scrolling through her iPhone. "Your ex-wife? She doesn't have the guts." But that night, a headline appeared online. "Real estate darling Cole Mercer under investigation for financial misuse." Cole threw his phone across the room. Sabrina gasped. "How did this get out?" He snarled. "She's doing this. She's trying to destroy me." Across the river, in a small apartment, Lila sat quietly beside Naomi, watching the same headline glow on her laptop screen. Naomi grinned. One headline down, 20 to go. Lila didn't smile. "I don't want to destroy him," she said softly. "I just want my name back." Naomi looked at her with quiet pride. "Then let's clear it brick by brick." Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. Lila turned off the lamp, the city lights reflecting in her eyes like sparks. The counterpunch had begun, silent, strategic, and unstoppable. The wind over Brooklyn carried the smell of roasted coffee and ambition. It was early morning, and Lila adjusted the collar of her thrifted blazer, walking toward the glass doors of a co-working hub downtown. Nell had arranged a meeting with a potential ally. Lila didn't know what to expect, only that she needed to learn faster than the world could humiliate her again. Inside, people in tailored suits typed on MacBooks and sipped espresso from white cups stamped with the CAF's logo. Lila felt like an imposter in her simple clothes. She smoothed her skirt, took a breath, and stepped forward. "Lila Hart?" The voice came from behind her, low, calm, confident. She turned. A tall man stood near the window, the skyline framing him like a portrait. Black suit, no tie, sleeves rolled just above his wrist. His watch gleamed, a stainless steel Patek Philippe, understated but impossible to miss. "I'm Adrian Pierce," he said, extending his hand. "Nell speaks highly of you." Lila hesitated before shaking it. His grip was firm, grounding. "You're the investor she mentioned." "Investor, problem solver, occasional troublemaker." He smiled faintly. "Mostly, I help people clean up messes created by arrogant men." Pied. That earned a laugh from her first real one in weeks. They sat across from each other in a quiet corner. Adrian opened his iPad, sliding it toward her. "I've reviewed the Whitfield Holdings portfolio. You're not just inheriting wealth, Miss Hart. You're inheriting influence, real, tangible power. But influence attracts sharks. Cole Mercer is one of them." Lila stiffened. "He's already circling." "I can feel it." Adrian nodded. "He's reckless. Men like that assume women like you will fold. That's their weakness." She looked out the window at the skyline. "I don't want revenge. I just want peace. Peace is earned," he said simply. "And sometimes earning it looks a lot like war." They spent hours going through documents. Adrian explained corporate structures, board voting rights, offshore accounts. He was patient, never condescending. Every time she asked a question, he smiled as if her curiosity was strength, not ignorance. At one point, he leaned back, watching her jot notes in a small spiral notebook. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Who?" "A woman I once trusted too much. Sabrina Vale." Lila froze. "You knew her?" His expression hardened. "I was engaged to her before she met Cole. She left when she realized my world wasn't flashy enough for her brand." The room went cold. "So now she's helping Cole destroy both of us," Lila murmured. "Seems so," Adrian said. "But that's fine. Let them underestimate us. They'll never see what's coming." When the meeting ended, he stood and extended his hand again. You don't owe anyone an apology for surviving, Miss Hart. Remember that. She smiled faintly. You can call me Lila. He nodded once. Then call me Adrian. Outside, they walked toward the corner where a yellow cab idled. The wind whipped through her hair, carrying away the scent of roasted beans and rain. Do you really think I can do this? She asked, half laughing, half trembling. Adrian's gaze met hers, steady, deliberate. I don't think. I know. You just need to stop fighting like a waitress and start thinking like the woman who owns the restaurant. Lila laughed softly, surprised by how natural it felt. As she stepped into the cab, she glanced back at him. He stood there, hands in pockets, watching her leave like a man who already knew this wouldn't be the last time they'd meet. Neither of them realized it yet, but that single handshake had just drawn battle lines that would change all their lives forever. 2 weeks after meeting Adrian, Lila's days looked nothing like the life she used to know. Gone were the long diner shifts and endless exhaustion. Now her mornings started in the quiet reading room of the New York Public Library, surrounded by the smell of paper, ambition, and redemption. A silver MacBook Air sat open in front of her, filled with spreadsheets, articles, and online courses. She was teaching herself finance, corporate governance, and everything Adrian had said she'd need to navigate the world she was about to inherit. She'd scrawled 3 words on a sticky note and taped it to her screen. Learn. Rise. Lead. The library's old clock struck 10. Lila glanced at her watch, her mother's old Citizen, still ticking. Time hadn't been kind to her, but it was still hers. Nell stopped by often, sometimes with pastries, sometimes just quiet company. One morning, she slid a book across the table, its orange cover bright under the lamplight. You'll like this one, she said. Atomic Habits. It's about small steps that change everything. Lila smiled. You think I can change everything? I think you already are, Nell replied. But learning wasn't easy. She failed small tests, misread legal clauses, and once spent an entire afternoon crying over a simple contract term. Still, every setback hardened her resolve. Each mistake reminded her she wasn't weak, just unfinished. Meanwhile, the outside world spun darker. Cole's company, Mercer Development, was pushing a multi-million-dollar project with Whitfield Holdings. His PR team, led by Sabrina, painted him as a visionary, a self-made success. One night, Lila's phone buzzed. It was a text from Naomi. He's on CNBC. You should see this. She opened the live stream. Cole sat in a glass studio overlooking Wall Street, flashing his perfect smile. We're expanding into new markets, he said. And I couldn't have done it without the incredible Sabrina Vale. She's my rock. Lila's stomach turned. Her ex-husband was using the same charm he once used on her to hypnotize an entire audience. Then she noticed the company logo, on the backdrop, Whitfield Holdings, her company. Within hours, Naomi and Adrian were in her apartment. Naomi paced while Adrian examined the TV. He's lying about that partnership, Adrian said flatly. He's using your mother's name to leverage investors. Fraud, plain and simple. Naomi nodded. We can expose it, but not yet. Timing matters. Lila took a deep breath. Then we wait. But I'm not hiding anymore. Over the next month, Lila built herself into something new. She traded her thrifted clothes for confidence, learned to negotiate over coffee instead of apology. Adrian met her twice a week, walking her through business scenarios at a quiet cafe on Park Avenue. He pushed her, challenged her, sometimes frustrated her, but he never treated her like she couldn't win. One evening, as they reviewed balance sheets, he looked up. You're getting good at this, he said. I had to, she replied softly. Ignorance was expensive. He smiled. Then let's make sure Cole pays the bill. Later that night, alone in her apartment, Lila received an anonymous email. Be careful. Cole knows about your inheritance. He's planning something. Her blood ran cold. She stared out at the city lights, the weight of the warning pressing on her chest. But instead of fear, she felt something sharper: control. Because this time, Lila wasn't the girl who cried. She was the woman who prepared. And soon, Cole would discover that knowledge was the most expensive revenge of all. Rain fell over Manhattan in thin, silver sheets, turning the pavement into mirrors. Lila sat by the window of a quiet cafe near Bryant Park, her coffee long gone cold. Across from her, Adrian was speaking softly, pointing at his iPad. The glow lit his face, calm but focused. "Cole's using Whitfield's name again," he said. "Press releases, fake partnership statements, fake board signatures. He's crossing legal lines now." Lila clenched her jaw. "He's trying to get to me. If I make a move, he'll spin it like I'm after revenge." "Then, don't react," Adrian said. "We'll let him build his own trap." Outside, taxis honked and lights bled into the wet streets. Lila glanced at the people passing by umbrellas, briefcases, faces full of hurry. A year ago, she'd have been one of them, too tired to dream. Now she was plotting survival with a billionaire. She smiled faintly. "Do you ever get tired of playing savior?" Adrian shook his head. "I'm not saving you, Lila. I'm teaching you how to take the board from him." That night, as she rode the subway home, her phone buzzed with an alert. She froze. A new video was trending on Instagram. Cole and Sabrina were in Beverly Hills, kissing under neon lights. The caption read, "The real power couple. Leaving the past behind." She clicked on the comments. His ex must be sick seeing this. 4. She really thought she could compete with Sabrina. Poor girl, still chasing him. Her throat tightened. Even from 3,000 miles away, Cole still knew how to twist the knife. The next morning, Naomi burst into Lila's apartment, waving her phone. "He's done it again," she said. "He's using your trust name to secure investors. Look at this press release." It read, "Whitfield Foundation to partner with Mercer Development in expanding sustainable housing." Lila's voice shook. "That's not true. I never approved that." Naomi grinned coldly. "Then let's burn that lie with the truth." By afternoon, Adrian had arranged a private meeting with Whitfield's board. The conference room overlooked Central Park, glass walls gleaming under soft gray light. Lila sat between Adrian and Nell, her notes trembling slightly in her hand. One of the board members cleared his throat. "Miss Hart, Mr. Mercer claims you're backing his project. Is that accurate?" Lila lifted her chin. "No, Cole Mercer forged my approval, and I have proof." She passed the folder forward. Emails, signatures, fake documents, all tied to Cole's network. Adrian leaned back, watching the board's stunned faces. "You'll want to disassociate immediately," he said. "By morning, every investor will know the truth." The meeting ended in silence. Outside, Lila exhaled shakily. "Do you think it'll stop him?" Adrian shook his head. "No, it'll corner him. And that's when men like him make mistakes." Jen. That night, Cole was pacing in his Beverly Hills penthouse, yelling into his phone. "How did she find that out?" he snapped. "I covered every trail." Sabrina, lounging on the couch with a glass of champagne, shrugged. "Maybe you shouldn't have underestimated her." Cole glared at her. "You think she's smart enough to pull this off?" Sabrina smiled thinly. "Smart enough to find someone who is. Maybe your ex isn't as powerless as you thought." Junt. Meanwhile, Lila lay awake in her small apartment, city light spilling across the floor. She replayed Adrian's words, "Let him make mistakes." She turned off her phone and whispered into the darkness, "Let's see how loud your lies sound when no one believes you anymore." And somewhere in Beverly Hills, Cole Mercer had no idea that his empire was already cracking from the inside out. The morning sun poured through the glass of a midtown boardroom, catching the gold trim of the Whitfield Holdings logo. Lila stood by the window, her reflection superimposed over the skyline, a woman halfway between the life she'd survived and the power she was learning to hold. Adrian leaned on the conference table, laptop open, the hum of the city below, faint but steady. "You're ready," he said. Lila's fingers drummed nervously. "I still feel like I'm faking it." He smiled. "Everyone feels that way until the numbers start talking." Minutes later, the board meeting began. Executives filed in, men in crisp suits, women with sharp eyes and sharper pens. The air smelled like espresso and tension. On the large screen behind Lila, spreadsheets and graphs glowed in blue light. She took a deep breath. "Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for your time. I know you've heard rumors about Cole Mercer and a supposed partnership with Whitfield Holdings. I'm here to set the record straight." The room stilled. She clicked her remote, and the first slide appeared, financial charts, timelines, and fake signatures. These are the documents Mr. Mercer submitted to investors, but the signatures are forged. The accounts he cited? Non-existent. The project he's pitching doesn't exist beyond his press team's imagination. A murmur spread across the table. One director frowned. How can you be sure? Adrian stepped in, calm as ever. Because we traced every wire transfer. Every cent leads back to a personal account under the name Sabrina Vale. We have bank confirmations, timestamps, and internal emails to prove collusion. The room fell silent again, this time with awe. Lila continued, her voice stronger now. My mother built this company on integrity. It will not be used to launder someone's ambition. She let that hang in the air. When the meeting ended, several executives approached her to shake her hand. One whispered, "Your mother would be proud." As they left, Lila slumped in her chair, exhausted. Adrian closed his laptop and looked at her with a half-smile. "You were magnificent." She laughed weakly. "I thought my voice was shaking." "It was," he said, "but power doesn't require perfection, just courage." They walked out together into the crisp afternoon. On the street, the world looked brighter, sharper. She could finally breathe. That peace didn't last. That evening, as she prepared dinner in her small apartment, her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Still playing hero, Lila?" Cole's voice oozed through the line. "You think you've won? You just poked a bear." "Sweetheart." Lila's pulse quickened. "You forged my signature. You lied. You should be in jail." He laughed. "You always were naive. Sabrina and I run this city. Enjoy your 15 minutes before the truth catches up to you." When? The call ended with a click. Lila stood frozen, her dinner forgotten. Then she opened her laptop, forwarding the recorded call to Naomi with one message. "He just threatened me. Save this." Minutes later, Naomi replied, "Got it. Let's use it." Across the country in Beverly Hills, Cole poured himself a drink, unaware that his voice had just written his own downfall. Meanwhile, Lila texted Adrian. He called. "He's angry." His reply came quickly. "Good. Angry men make mistakes." She looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, the same city that once broke her now reflecting her fire. Because the numbers didn't lie, and soon, neither would the world. By the time October rolled into Manhattan, the city air had turned crisp and impatient. Lila was sitting in Naomi's office when the news broke. "Turn it up," Naomi said, jabbing her remote toward the TV mounted on the wall. The headline scrolled in bold. "Cole Mercer under fire for fraudulent partnership claims." Lila froze. On screen, Cole stood outside a marble courthouse, smiling too wide for a man accused of fraud. Sabrina clung to his arm, dressed in white, performing innocence for the cameras. Cole told reporters, "These accusations are absurd. I've always operated transparently. This is clearly the work of a bitter ex-wife trying to destroy my career." Lila's jaw tightened. The clip ended, replaced by a split-screen photo. Cole and Sabrina on one side, Lila on the other. Underneath, the caption read, "The scorned ex. Wife or the silenced Heiress?" Naomi muted the TV. "They're running the sympathy card," she muttered. Lila swallowed hard. "He's not just lying. He's rewriting the story." Naomi smiled thinly. "Then we'll rewrite it back. With evidence." That evening, Adrian joined them in the office, sleeves rolled up, eyes serious. Cole's team is panicking. They've hired a crisis PR firm. Sabrina's been feeding them fake timelines to muddy the record. 2.T. Naomi flipped open a folder. "We can expose that, but we need something concrete proof." "She's part of the scheme." Adrian nodded. "Then we go personal." He turned to Lila. "You still have those old texts from Cole, right? The ones from the divorce?" Lila nodded slowly. "Yes. Why?" "Because if we can match his financial transfers to his messages about those trips' business expenses, we can prove intent." Hours passed in a blur of paper, screens, and exhaustion. Lila scrolled through years of painful messages, Cole promising love one moment, calling her worthless the next. Each line was a ghost. Finally, Naomi looked up from her laptop. "Got him." Look at this, he wired funds for a company conference in Cabo. The same weekend he posted photos with Sabrina. That's misuse of investor money. Adrian grinned for the first time that night. It's over. But it wasn't. The next morning, Sabrina struck back. Her Instagram post went viral. A soft-lit photo of her crying, mascara smudged, captioned, "Women tearing down other women is never okay. I stand by the truth and by love." The internet split in half. Hashtags flooded Twitter. Stand with Sabrina trended. Lila's inbox filled with hate. Jealous witch. Can't move on. You're pathetic. By noon, paparazzi were outside her building. She hid inside, blinds drawn, heart pounding. Then her phone buzzed Adrian again. Don't look at the noise. Look at the numbers. Our filings go public tomorrow. Once people see the evidence, the noise dies. But it didn't stop that night. Someone slipped an envelope under her door. Inside printed screenshots of her private messages with Adrian, twisted out of context, captioned with a note, "Sleep tight, Heiress." Her chest tightened. Cole was watching her. She called Naomi in a panic. "He knows where I live." "I'll handle it," Naomi said. "Stay calm. We'll move you tonight." "Shall we?" By midnight, they had her relocated to a small guest suite inside Adrian's building overlooking Central Park. Safe. Quiet. Lila stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the glowing city. Her reflection looked different now. Not frightened, but fierce. She whispered, "He wants me scared. I won't give him that anymore." Behind her, Adrian said softly, "Then let's finish this. Because when masks begin to crack, truth doesn't whisper, it roars." The courthouse smelled like polished wood and cold nerves. Cameras flashed outside as reporters shouted questions, their voices overlapping into chaos. "Lila Hart, did you fabricate the inheritance? Is it true you're sabotaging your ex-husband?" She said nothing, just lifted her chin and walked inside. Her dark navy suit was simple but sharp, borrowed from Naomi, her hair tied back. Dignity over spectacle. Adrian walked beside her, calm as stone, his presence grounding her in the noise. Inside, the courtroom buzzed. Cole sat at the plaintiff's table, expensive suit, smug expression every inch the wounded golden boy. Sabrina sat behind him, a vision of fake sympathy in beige silk, eyes downcast like a grieving saint. Lila took her seat beside Naomi, heart hammering. The judge entered. "Court is now in session." Cole's attorney rose first. "Your Honor, my client has been unfairly targeted by false accusations designed to damage his professional reputation. Miss Hart's claims are malicious and unsubstantiated." Lila forced herself to look straight ahead. "Don't react. Don't flinch." When Naomi stood, the energy shifted. Her voice carried steady, deliberate. "Your Honor, what's truly malicious is using forged documents to defraud investors and manipulate public sympathy. We have the evidence to prove it." The first piece of evidence appeared on the courtroom monitor. Bank transfers, signed approvals, fake documents all traced to Cole's company. The audience murmured. Cole shifted in his seat. Then came the audio file, his recorded phone call. His own voice played, clear and damning. "You think you've won? You just poked a bear, sweetheart." Cole's face went pale. He whispered something to his lawyer, who swallowed hard. Naomi didn't stop. "And here's the witness who authenticated these transactions. Miss Lila Hart, rightful heir to Whitfield Holdings." Lila stood, every muscle trembling but steady. She met the judge's eyes. "Your Honor, I didn't come here for revenge. I came for truth. My late mother spent her life believing decency mattered. This man destroyed that faith. I won't let him destroy her name too." Silence filled the room. Cole's lawyer sputtered, "She's performing. Your Honor, she..." Before he could finish, the courtroom doors opened. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A young man entered, wearing a simple gray suit, his resemblance to Lila unmistakable. Naomi turned, stunned. "Who?" Lila whispered, "My brother." The man spoke softly. "My name is Ryan Whitfield. I have additional records from my father's archive original signatures proving Lila's rightful claim." He placed a sealed folder on the judge's bench and recorded conversations between Mr. Mercer and Miss Vale discussing how to forge those signatures. Cole's composure cracked. "That's a lie," he shouted. The judge banged his gavel. "Order." Naomi handed the recordings to the clerk. Moments later, Cole's own voice filled the room again, this time laughing with Sabrina. "Relax, babe. No one checks signatures anymore. By the time she figures it out, we'll be on a yacht." The courtroom erupted. Cole's lawyer slumped in defeat. The judge's tone turned cold. "This case will move forward as criminal fraud. Miss Hart, your motion for dismissal of defamation is granted." Lila exhaled, trembling. Adrian reached over, his hand covering hers beneath the table. Quiet reassurance. Outside, the cameras were waiting. Reporters screamed for statements, but Lila simply said, "The truth speaks for itself." As she stepped into the sunlight, Naomi grinned beside her. "You just turned the entire game." Adrian met her gaze, voice low. "And the board is finally yours." Behind them, Cole Mercer's empire began to crumble brick by brick, truth by truth. The verdict spread across every news outlet by morning. Cole Mercer, under criminal investigation. The once untouchable real estate darling was now the face of public disgrace. Lila watched the broadcast from her apartment window, coffee cooling untouched in her hands. The headlines should have felt like victory. Instead, her chest was hollow. Adrian arrived quietly, a folder under his arm. "They froze his accounts," he said. "Cole's assets, Sabrina's credit cards, all locked." "You've done it." Lila managed a tired smile. "Then why does it feel like nothing?" "Because justice isn't peace," he said softly. "They're not the same thing." She stared at the city below, its hum carrying through the glass. For the first time in years, she could breathe without fear, but the air still hurt. "All I ever wanted was for him to stop haunting me," she whispered. Adrian leaned against the window, hands in pockets. "Then stop letting him. Close the book." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed an email alert. The subject line read, "You think it's over?" Her stomach dropped. Inside was a photo taken that morning from a street camera outside her building, Cole's car idling across the street. The timestamp said 6:47 amperes. "He's watching me," she whispered. Adrian took the phone, jaw tightening. "He's desperate. Don't panic. He's cornered, and cornered men make noise." But it wasn't just noise. That afternoon, Sabrina went live on Instagram, crying into the camera. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she sobbed. "Cole lied to me too. He said Lila was unstable, obsessed, dangerous." Her tears glistened. "I'm afraid of her." The internet devoured it. Within an hour, hashtags flared. Number Lila the liar. Number Justice for Cole. Reporters crowded outside her door again. Naomi called, furious. "That little actress flipped the story. She's pretending to be the victim." Lila closed her eyes. "Let her. The truth's already in the files." Naomi sighed. "You're too soft. This is war." But Lila had no strength left for war. That night, she packed a small suitcase and took a train north to Greenwich, the quiet Connecticut town where her mother once lived. She rented a cabin by the water, away from the noise. For days, she walked along the shore, the salt air cutting through the static in her head. In the evenings, she read the books Nell had sent before she passed dog-eared copies of Women Who Run with the Wolves and Meditations. The words steadied her. One rainy afternoon, she found a sealed envelope among Nell's things, her name written in blue ink. Inside was a short letter. "Lila, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't mourn me, finish what I started. Your mother didn't die to make you rich. She fought so you could be free. Find peace, not pity. And remember, forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the final power." Tears slid down her face. She whispered, "I forgive you, Mom. I forgive me too." The next morning, a knock broke the silence. Adrian stood at her door, soaked from rain. "You disappeared," he said. "I needed to remember who I was before all this," she replied softly. He nodded, stepping closer. "Then remember this too. You're not alone in it anymore." She met his gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Outside, the storm calmed. Inside, Lila's world began to steady again. Because healing isn't quiet, it's choosing to keep standing even after the light hurts your eyes. Winter swept over New York like a clean slate. Snow powdered the streets, muting the city's noise. It had been 3 quiet months since Lila vanished from the spotlight. Cole's scandal had dragged on hearings, leaked recordings, Sabrina's crocodile tears. People were tired of the drama. But what no one knew was that Lila Hart was not hiding. She was rebuilding. In a glass office high above Park Avenue, Lila stood before the board of Whitfield Holdings. Gone was the girl in borrowed clothes. Today she wore a sleek black suit, her hair swept into a low bun, a single diamond stud glinting under the light. She didn't speak like someone begging to belong, she belonged. "We'll relaunch the Whitfield Foundation at the spring gala," she said. "But this time, it won't be about handshakes and press photos. It'll be about truth, our values, our legacy, and transparency." The directors nodded, impressed. One asked, "Will you attend the gala personally?" Lila smiled. "Yes, and I intend to face the past, publicly." Later that evening, she walked out of the building to find Adrian waiting by a black Mercedes, snowflakes clinging to his coat. He held the door open, his eyes warm. "You're really going back there? The Plaza Hotel?" She nodded. "The same ballroom. Same date. This time, I walk in on my own terms." Adrian studied her for a moment. "You don't owe them anything." "No," she said softly. "But I owe something to myself." As they drove past the glowing skyline, memories flickered her humiliation, the laughter, the sting of shame. But those ghosts no longer terrified her. They fueled her. The night of the gala arrived like a full circle. Manhattan glittered under crystal lights, cameras flashing outside the plaza. Reporters waited for Cole and Sabrina, once the city's power couple, but there were rumors they wouldn't appear. Inside, guests murmured as the orchestra played softly. The massive doors opened and silence rippled through the crowd. Lila entered. Every head turned. Her gown was ivory satin, simple but luminous, the train trailing like calm authority. No designer logos. No flash, just presence. Adrian followed a step behind, dressed in a tailored tuxedo. They weren't flaunting romance. They radiated respect. Whispers filled the room. "Is that her? She came back? She looks unstoppable." Bye. From the corner, Sabrina froze mid-sip of champagne, her face draining of color. Cole wasn't beside her. He'd been subpoenaed that morning. Lila stepped to the podium. Cameras clicked. She spoke clearly, her voice steady. "A year ago, this room was a place of humiliation for me. Tonight, it's a place of rebirth. The Whitfield Foundation stands not for wealth, but for accountability. For everyone who's ever been told they're not enough." Applause began hesitantly, then swelled. She smiled, scanning the room. Sabrina tried to slip away, but Lila's next words stopped her cold. "And for those who built their lives on lies, may this evening remind you that truth doesn't disappear. It only waits for the right time to stand up." Flashbulbs erupted. Reporters scrambled. Lila stepped down from the podium, calm, almost serene. Adrian offered his hand. "You just burned an empire," he murmured. She smiled. "No, Adrian. I just stopped letting it burn me." Sen. As the orchestra swelled, they walked through the ballroom together. Guests stepped aside, whispering, awed. Outside, snow drifted through the city lights as black cars lined up along Fifth Avenue. And for the first time, the woman they once called the poor ex-wife was walking not toward revenge but toward her own legend. The music faded as Lila stepped down from the podium, her speech still echoing through the plaza's grand ballroom. The chandeliers glittered like constellations above her, the same ones that once witnessed her humiliation a year before. This time, however, she wasn't trembling, she was glowing. Adrian stood nearby, watching as guests whispered her name. Some approached to shake her hand, others simply stared, uncertain how to treat a woman they'd once dismissed as a footnote. "Miss Hart," a silver-haired investor said, extending his hand, "I underestimated you. The city needs more people like you." "Zaire." Lila smiled politely. "No, sir. The city needs fewer people like the ones who made me small." A few laughed softly. The tone of the night shifted, respect replaced gossip. But the real storm was only beginning. Near the back of the ballroom, Sabrina Vale hovered in a corner, clutching a glass of champagne like a shield. Her perfect composure was cracking, mascara smudged at the corners of her eyes. When she spotted Adrian, her expression darkened. "You brought her here," she hissed, approaching him. "You planned this circus." Adrian turned calmly. "No. Lila planned her own comeback. You just happened to RSVP." Sabrina's jaw tightened. "You think you've won? Both of you?" "Cole will." "Cole won't do anything," Adrian interrupted, voice low. "He's in custody tonight. Fraud charges, wire transfers, falsified contracts. He's not walking out anytime soon." The color drained from her face. "You're lying." "Sen." Lila joined them then, her poise unshakable. "You lied first, Sabrina, to everyone including yourself." Sabrina laughed bitterly. "You think people care about truth? They care about headlines. You'll fade. I always come back." Lila met her eyes, unflinching. "You can't come back from being irrelevant." Sabrina's hand trembled. She set her glass down before it shattered. Across the ballroom, the giant projector flared to life. A short film began playing, an official statement from Whitfield Holdings, detailing the fraud investigation. Cole's voice recordings filled the room, his arrogant laughter echoing through the speakers. "Relax, babe. No one checks signatures anymore." Guests gasped, cameras turned. Sabrina froze, staring at the screen in horror as her own voice followed. "Once it's filed, we'll be rich, and she'll be forgotten." The crowd erupted into whispers. Phones flashed. Someone muttered, "That's them. That's both of them." Sabrina backed away, pale as marble. Lila didn't speak. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than revenge. When the video ended, Adrian stepped beside her, his voice soft. "You did it." She exhaled slowly, emotion catching in her throat. "No. We did it." The orchestra struck up again, softer now, almost reverent. A few guests applauded not out of pity, but admiration. Outside, snow drifted against the tall glass windows. Lila looked out at the Manhattan skyline, lights shimmering like tiny second chances. Adrian touched her arm gently. "Ready to go?" She nodded. Together, they walked through the ballroom, past the stunned guests, past the place where she had once stood humiliated. At the door, she turned back one last time. The laughter, the pity, the shame, all of it seemed small now, ghosts from another life. "Goodbye, old version of me," she whispered. Then she stepped into the night, snowflakes melting in her hair, the world finally silent. Because some victories don't roar, they whisper. You survived, and that's enough. The plaza glittered under the last snow of the season, every light reflecting off marble floors like liquid gold. The Whitfield Foundation's relaunch gala had become the event of the year. Lila Hart was no longer the scandalous girl of power and purpose. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers, photographers flashing at every entrance. Celebrities, business moguls, and old-money socialites mingled, glasses clinking with forced laughter. But when the doors opened again, a hush rippled through the room. Lila entered. She wore a tailored white gown with a soft satin train, her hair pulled into a loose knot. A thin silver bracelet, the one her mother used to wear, glinted on her wrist. She walked beside Adrian Pierce, who looked effortlessly composed in a black tuxedo. He wasn't her escort, he was her equal. As they stepped inside, whispers swelled. "That's her. She came back. She looks untouchable." Lila's eyes swept the room and landed on a familiar face, Sabrina Vale, standing near the bar. Her once glamorous aura faded. Her PR company had collapsed after the scandal. She still smiled for cameras, but tonight, no one was interested. Sabrina caught Lila's gaze and looked away first. Adrian leaned close. "You don't have to talk to her." "I know," Lila replied softly. "But forgiveness is cheaper than hate." They moved toward the center of the room. The event director handed Lila a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Lila Hart, the new chairwoman of the Whitfield Foundation." Applause erupted. She stood under the grand chandelier, voice calm, clear. "1 year ago, I walked into this very room ashamed of who I was. I left believing I had lost everything. But sometimes, losing everything is how you find yourself again." The crowd grew still. "My mother taught me that real wealth isn't measured in money, but in courage. So tonight, This foundation will dedicate half its endowment to rebuilding community clinics across New York, the same ones that cared for her when no one else did. Bye. The applause this time wasn't polite, it was real, emotional. Cameras flashed. Adrian smiled proudly from the side. After her speech, reporters surrounded her, firing questions. "Miss Hart, what's next for you? How does it feel to finally win?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like peace. And that's worth more than any victory." From the corner, Sabrina watched in silence. Her glass trembled slightly before she set it down and slipped out of the ballroom unnoticed. Later that night, Lila stood on the balcony overlooking Central Park, snow glittering like 1,000 diamonds beneath the moonlight. Adrian joined her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't gone to that first gala?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But I think pain was the tuition for this peace." He studied her for a long moment. "You're extraordinary, Lila." Her breath fogged in the cold air. "You make me want to believe that." He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining. The city lights reflected in her eyes like a promise waiting to be spoken. For a long time, neither said anything. The noise of the party below faded into soft music, and all that remained was the rhythm of 2 people who had both lost everything and found each other at the right moment. In the same place she was once humiliated, Lila Hart finally stood not as someone's ex-wife, but as a woman reborn. Woo! The city was still buzzing from the gala weeks later. Articles called Lila the comeback queen, the woman who beat the billionaires, a modern-day Cinderella without a prince. The attention was overwhelming, yet oddly hollow. Lila didn't crave fame, she craved quiet. She sat in her new office, overlooking Central Park, surrounded by the soft hum of success. The Whitfield Foundation was finally running again, donations pouring in, projects approved. But peace, she learned, came with its own cost: loneliness. A knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. Adrian stepped in, his coat draped over one arm, his expression warm but concerned. "You haven't eaten," he said, setting a paper bag from the river calf on her desk. Lila smiled faintly. "You're starting to sound like Nell." "Done." "Then I'm doing something right," he replied, settling into the chair across from her. They ate quietly for a while, watching snow fall over the park. Then Adrian spoke. "The investigation's closing soon. Cole's trial date is set." Her stomach tightened. "And Sabrina, she's turned on him. Testified in exchange for leniency. It's going to bury him completely." Lila nodded slowly. She was always going to save herself first. Adrian studied her face. "You don't seem happy about it." "Sure." She sighed, tracing the edge of her coffee cup. "I don't know. I thought justice would feel like relief. But it just feels empty." He leaned forward. "That's because revenge doesn't heal. It just ends the noise." Silence lingered. Lila looked at him. Really looked. The steady eyes, the calm strength that had become her anchor. "You sound like someone who's learned that the hard way," she said softly. Adrian smiled faintly. "Maybe I have." "Jane." Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Warmth, gratitude, the fragile beginning of something real. Before the moment could deepen, Naomi burst through the door, phone in hand. "You two might want to see this." She turned the screen toward them. A live feed played on a local news site, Cole Mercer being escorted out of a courthouse in handcuffs, shouting at cameras. "I was framed," he yelled. "That woman stole everything from me." The reporter's voice cut in. "Mr. Mercer faces multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and perjury. If convicted, he could face up to 15 years in prison." Naomi grinned. "Poetic, isn't it?" Lila didn't answer. She stared at the screen for a long time, then quietly said, "Turn it off." When Naomi left, Adrian stood. "You don't have to watch his ending," he said. "I already lived it," she whispered. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "Then maybe it's time to start a new one." Way. Later that night, alone in her penthouse, Lila wandered into the nursery she had quietly built months before, not for show, but for hope. A soft lullaby played from a mobile above an empty crib. She smiled, touching her stomach lightly. It was still a secret, one even Adrian didn't know yet. Outside, Manhattan sparkled like a living constellation. She whispered to the night, "You'll never know your father's cruelty. You'll know kindness instead." Hi. Her phone buzzed Adrian's message. "Tomorrow, dinner. No business. Just us." She typed back. Yes. For the first time in years, her heart didn't ache, it steadied. Justice had been loud, but peace. Peace was quiet and kind. And for Lila Hart, quiet was the most beautiful sound in the world. Spring arrived with a softness Lila had forgotten the world could hold. The air over Manhattan was warmer now, sunlight flickering through blooming cherry trees in Central Park. For once, her days didn't revolve around court filings or board meetings, they revolved around life. 3 months had passed since Cole's conviction. The papers said he wept in court when sentenced to 12 years. Sabrina's deal reduced her sentence to 5, and even her crocodile tears couldn't save her from public scorn. The world had moved on from them. But for Lila Hart, the real story wasn't who fell, it was who rose. She was sitting in her townhouse kitchen one morning, barefoot, stirring coffee while sunlight spilled across marble counters. Adrian walked in, tie loosened, eyes still sleepy. "You've been up since dawn," he said. "I couldn't sleep," she replied, smiling. "They're kicking again." He froze mid-step, his face lighting up. "Kicking?" Lila nodded, guiding his hand gently to her stomach. The faintest flutter answered him. "3 little miracles," she whispered. Adrian laughed, his eyes glistening. "Triplets?" "Of course. You never do anything halfway." She chuckled softly. "You're not scared?" "Terrified," he admitted. But in the best way. That morning set the rhythm of a new chapter. The months that followed were a blur of doctor visits, late-night cravings, and baby-name debates. Lila traded designer meetings for nursery planning, trading boardrooms for birthing classes. For the first time, her ambition had nothing to do with proving herself, it was about nurturing something pure. One rainy evening, she and Adrian visited Nell's old townhouse to turn it into the Whitfield Women's Initiative, a center for single mothers seeking work and housing. Lila stood in the doorway, watching the construction crew paint the walls in soft pastels. "She'd love this," Adrian said quietly. "I hope so," Lila whispered. "She believed in me before I did." Chandress. He looked at her belly, then at her. "She still does." By late summer, the twins had become triplets, and Lila's life slowed into tender chaos. She went into labor on a golden afternoon in August, the sky a perfect New York blue. Hours later, the cries of 3 tiny lives filled Mount Sinai Hospital. Adrian stood beside her, tears in his eyes as he held their daughters, Hope, Grace, and Faith. "They look like you," he murmured. "Then they're already stronger than they know," Lila replied, exhausted but radiant. Days blurred into nights of sleepless joy. She'd wake to the sound of soft cries, feeding one while Adrian rocked another. Sometimes, she'd pause just to watch him, this man who once towered over boardrooms, now swaying gently with a newborn in his arms. One night, around 3 a.m., Lila sat by the window, the city glowing beyond the glass. She whispered to her sleeping babies, "You'll never have to see what pain did to me. You'll only see what love built afterward." Months later, at the foundation's reopening ceremony, Lila appeared not as the headline, but as a mother carrying 3 little bundles of hope. The audience stood and applauded, not for wealth, not for scandal, but for survival. A journalist asked, "Miss Hart, if you could say one thing to your younger self, what would it be?" Lila smiled, eyes full of peace. "I'd tell her she was never broken, just waiting to become whole." Adrian reached for her hand, and she squeezed it gently. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's building a life so full of love that the past has nowhere left to live. Autumn returned to New York, and with it came the kind of golden light that made the city feel forgiving. 3 tiny bassinets lined the master bedroom of Lila and Adrian's townhouse. The soft hum of lullabies filled the air. Between feedings and naps, life unfolded in quiet, beautiful chaos. The Whitfield Women's Initiative had opened its doors 2 months earlier. Lila spent her mornings there, balancing spreadsheets with one hand while cradling a baby in the other. Every wall was painted in warm colors. Every hallway echoed with laughter and crying and second chances. On opening day, hundreds had gathered, women who'd been written off by the world, now standing together. "You don't need to be perfect to start over," Lila had said in her speech, her voice trembling only once. You just need one person to believe in you. For me, that person was my mother. Today, it's my turn to believe in all of you." The applause that day had felt like redemption. Now, months later, her life was simpler. The triplets' hope, grace, and faith filled her days with music and sleepless nights. Sometimes, she'd wake at 3 a.m., exhausted, yet smiling at the sight of Adrian asleep in an armchair, a baby on his chest, and a milk bottle slipping from his hand. They'd built something no scandal could touch a home. One evening, Naomi came over with takeout and exhaustion written on her face. "You made it, Lila," she said, looking around at the nursery filled with soft pink light. "You're really happy." Lila smiled, tucking a blanket around one of the babies. "Happiness used to scare me," she admitted. "It felt too fragile. But now it feels earned." Naomi nodded. Cole's sentencing made the news again today. He appealed denied. "Sabrina's already out on parole, though. You okay with that?" Lila hesitated. "I don't hate them anymore. I just hope they learn what I did, that pain doesn't give you power. Kindness does." Naomi smiled faintly. "That's the most Lila Hart thing I've ever heard." Later that night, after Naomi left, Lila wandered into her study. The lights from Central Park shimmered through the window. On her desk sat her mother's old citizen watch, still ticking after all these years. She picked it up, whispering, "You'd like him, Mom. You'd like the life we built." Behind her, Adrian appeared in the doorway, barefoot, a sleepy smile on his face. "Talking to her again?" "Always," Lila said softly. "She's part of all this." He wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You know," he murmured, "you rebuilt your whole life from ashes." Lila smiled. "No, we built it." Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Inside, their world was warm, steady, safe. Weeks later, a reporter visited for a feature story about her foundation. "Do you ever think about the night at the plaza?" she asked, notebook poised. Lila laughed quietly. "Sometimes, but not with pain anymore. That night was supposed to break me. Instead, it introduced me to who I really am." "One?" The journalist smiled. "And who is that?" Lila looked toward the nursery, where Adrian was singing softly to their daughters. "A woman who stopped surviving and started living." The interview ran the next day under the headline, "Lila Hart, From Scandal to Sanctuary." That evening, Lila closed her laptop, turned off the lights, and whispered to the city, "You can keep your gossip. I've got something better, peace." Win. Because sometimes the truest happy ending isn't winning. It's waking up each day in a life you never have to escape from. Winter returned to Manhattan again, but this time the cold carried no weight for Lila Hart. The townhouse on East 74th glowed with golden light, laughter echoing through the halls. The triplets' hope, grace, and faith had just turned one. Tiny balloons floated above the dining table while Adrian struggled to light 3 small candles without burning his tie. "Don't rush," Lila teased, laughing softly. "They won't remember it anyway." Adrian grinned. "Maybe not. But we will." When the candles finally flickered to life, Lila leaned down and whispered to the girls, "Make a wish." She blew for them, the flames going out in a single breath. It felt symbolic, the last remnants of a past she no longer owed anything to. Later, after the guests had gone and the babies were asleep, Lila stepped out onto the balcony. Central Park stretched below, silver and still under the moonlight. Adrian joined her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You did it," he said softly. "You turned everything they threw at you into something beautiful." She smiled. "It wasn't just me. It was mostly you," he said, kissing her forehead. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the city breathing beneath them. It was hard to believe that 2 years earlier she'd stood in the same city, broken, wondering how to start again. Now she had a home, a family, and a legacy stronger than any humiliation. But the story wasn't finished, not yet. 2 weeks later, Lila received a letter in the mail. The sender, Cole Mercer, inmate 41728, Greenhaven Correctional Facility. Her first instinct was to throw it away. But curiosity, perhaps closure won. Inside, the handwriting was shaky. "Lila, I know I have no right to ask forgiveness, but I need to try. I thought success made me powerful. Turns out, it just made me small. You deserved better than me from the start. You were the only thing real in a life full of lies. I hope your new one is full of peace. Cole. Lila read it twice, then set it down beside her mother's watch. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply whispered, "I forgive you." That night, she wrote a note of her own, not to send, but to keep. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It frees what's left. You can't rewrite the past. But you can live so brightly it stops mattering. Days later, she stood at the grand opening of a new Whitfield clinic in Queens, the same neighborhood where she once worked at the diner. The crowd applauded as she cut the ribbon, babies on her hip, Adrian smiling from the sidelines. A young waitress approached her afterward, nervous. "Miss Hart, I used to serve you coffee at Lucky's Diner. You were always kind, even when you looked tired. You give me hope." Lila smiled, tears glistening. "That's all I ever wanted to give hope." As the day faded, she walked with Adrian through Central Park, the stroller wheels crunching against the snow. "Do you ever think we'd end up here?" she asked. He laughed softly. "Not in a million years." She looked ahead at the glowing skyline, her heart full. "Then maybe miracles are just justice that took its time." He squeezed her hand. "Or maybe they're the reward for surviving." She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. The world was quiet, peaceful, complete. Because in the end, Lila Hart didn't just win, she healed. She proved that mercy is the highest form of justice, and love, the truest form of revenge. So, that's how her story ends. And if you're still here, watching until this very moment, maybe something in Lila's journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Because deep down, we've all been her once hurt, underestimated, standing alone in a room that tried to make us small. But like the Stoics said, what stands in the way becomes the way. Every wound can become wisdom if we refuse to let it define us. Lila's story reminds us that peace isn't found when the world finally apologizes. It's found the moment we forgive ourselves and keep walking forward. Healing doesn't mean forgetting what broke you. It means building something beautiful in its place. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So, if you're fighting your own battles tonight, hold on. You're not behind, you're becoming. Let this story be proof that no pain is wasted if it leads you back to yourself. If this journey moved you, give it a like. Share it with someone who needs hope. And don't forget to subscribe, because here, we keep telling stories that heal hearts, one truth at a time.